All right, we're live. Yay. Hey guys, welcome to The Trade, episode 42. We're doing an interview today with Bill Holbrook of On the Fast Track. Awesome syndicated cartoonist. He works for King Features. And if you want to read his comics online, it's onthefasttrack.com. So, hello, Bill.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Yay. My name is Melanie. I'll be one of your hosts today. I should have one or two other co-hosts showing up. They're just running late right now. Technical difficulties. You guys understand. Age of the internet and all that fun stuff also includes all the lovely bubbles and hiccups involved with the internet. So right now I am the creator of Ornamental at ornamentalcomics.com. So if anybody wants to go and check them out. I'm also on Facebook, and I know Bill is here. He has, how many different pages do you have on Facebook? I know you got Desthiny's one. Which other ones do you have?
Desthiny's one, Kel's another. There's a Facebook page for Desthiny's coworker, Fee, and there's a separate Facebook page for my comic strip Safe Havens, where I update all the weird science fiction fantasy stuff that goes on in that strip. So I guess I'm active on social media.
Very much so. Thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it, actually, just so you know. So anyways, generally speaking, being a syndicated cartoonist, how long did it take for you to become syndicated?
Well, I made several runs at it. One when I was in college. I submitted my college strip I've been doing for my college newspaper called Fenton Farnsworth. That got rejected by everybody. Then I tried again after I graduated and was working in Atlanta. I did a strip about a young guy with a useless college degree in medieval sports. He's working at a rundown diner. That strip was called Winston Lewsome. That was rejected by everyone, but I by that time had enough momentum that I could see where I'd gone wrong with the characterizations and what I was doing. I kind of retooled all the elements of that into On the Fast Track. Took them into a corporation and dealt with all the computer stuff going on, and that clicked. It was picked up by King Features, and this evolved over the years. It had different people have come in. I mean, different characters have come in. Like it started off. The main character of Fast Track was a young man named Bob Shirt, who was based on myself, and he was soon superseded by a character named Wendy, who, well, I just found that the issues of a young woman in the corporate world, there was more material that hadn't been just picked over by everyone else. This was new things that were happening, and it all seemed fresh. So she took over the strip for a long period of time. And then, a few years ago, I introduced her assistant, Destiny. And again, she just was like a breath of fresh air. She was based on my daughter, who was 18 at the time I created Destiny. The caricature of the goth culture is that goths are, well, it's not a very positive reputation, and that's not what I saw from my daughter, who was very hardworking, serious, but who knows how to have fun. She's personable and bright. So there was a contrast between the general impression of what a goth is and what I was observing, and I thought there is humor there. So I created Destiny, and I was really pleased with the result that she got from the readers. She's just really, they take her to heart, which has been very gratifying.
Well, I am goth as well. I am a very nerdy goth, mind you, but I am definitely of the gothic culture. I've also done 2 photo documentaries
Oh,
of gothic and of the clubbing life. And yeah, overall, a lot of people give them a really bad reputation. And basically, a lot of them are just big
yeah.
horror fans. They're big fans of this dark aesthetic and the dark music. But that doesn't mean they're not very nice people. They're very positive. But there's always going to be a jerk in any group, and so a lot of times
Right.
they're gonna get that negative stereotype from that one fucking idiot. It
Yeah.
never fails.
Yeah. Well, she
So,
and her friends are all, well, they came of age during the Great Recession, where life suddenly had higher stakes. And in order for just a survival, you needed to be good at your work, you needed to not be a jerk, you needed to just because life wasn't easy, life was challenging. In order to not compromise who you are, you needed to be, you needed to bring something to the table.
yes, definitely. There's this is one of the reasons why I like Bethany so much, and your portrayal of her and her gothic aesthetic, just working it into a corporate atmosphere. I have to do that myself on a regular basis.
Right.
I do have my stripy little gloves. I wear them especially in the winter when it's cold, because it's cold and I want to wear gloves.
Right.
And frequently my coworkers look at me like, I don't think that's in the dress code. And I'm like, really? Where?
Doesn't say.
Don't say. Guess what?
Yeah.
It's just having a different mindset within a cube.
Right.
That's the easiest way to put it. You have a different mindset. Doesn't mean you can't fit yourself inside the cube. Doesn't mean you're not hardworking and a good person. It just means you look at things differently.
Exactly.
And it's not bad at all. Yeah.
Right.
And I want to say hello to our co-host. He finally made it on here. Let's see if he is available. Hi, James.
Hello. Good to be here.
James. Good. James, you're in your hotel room, right?
That's right.
Thank
you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem, hon. Hey, so anyways, throw out your links there real quick, hon. James, throw out your links to your work website. Yes, I can hear you.
My primary site is jjameshin.com, and you can find my work on both Facebook and anywhere on the internet, searching the terms Mustang Tuesday Weekly. Also Maize, M-A-I-Z-E.
There we go. All right. Thank you for joining me and Bill today. We appreciate it. James had to fly in and do a business doodad, so right now he's at a hotel room, guys. So if it's a little fuzzy internet, we're talking about internet hotel Wi-Fi, so it's not always the absolute 100% best. But anyways, overall, with being syndicated, how long have you been doing Fast Track now?
Well, Fast Track started in 1984. And
that's been quite a while.
Are you played some evolutions?
With the
Or,
Well, with the advent of the internet, with people setting up their own webcomics and websites, did you see this as an obstacle in being a syndicated cartoonist?
oh no, not at all. I saw it as an opportunity. I saw it as another out. I saw the internet as another avenue to put my work out there to gain a wider audience. Um, there's been a lot of conflict between syndication and webcomics. I just see them as two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I've actually heard from several other syndicated cartoonists that a lot of them still quite don't understand the internet and the webcomics idea, and seeing the syndicate model as being the only way to go.
Well, it's still the syndicate model still works. I mean, it was created around World War I, and it's basically a company goes to newspapers and says, "Hey, run this work," and there are still newspapers buying it, so it's still a thriving business model 100 years later. Not many business models can say that. But with the internet, it's a different business model in that you get eyeballs first, you build up an audience, and then you find a way to monetize it. And that depends very much on your audience, because every audience of a webcomic has a different audience, a different calibration of what they buy. For instance, I know the guys who do Penny Arcade sell a lot of T-shirts. I tried selling T-shirts. No one bought them. But what they do buy are my book collections.
Yes.
Every webcomic has its different demographics, its different mixture. So so what's going to work for one webcomic isn't going to work for another, and vice versa.
Right. This is true, but overall, I think the idea behind webcomics and using the internet is more of a eyeball tool, you know.
Right.
I've had a lot of people kind of poo-poo the idea of a lot of the younger webcomics people pretty much sticking to doing just webcomics and then publishing their own books, and you know, not trying to go and become syndicate cartoonists or get their work out there published in papers at all. And I keep trying to explain to people that, you know, sometimes syndication is not for everybody. What King Features and a lot of the syndicates are looking for isn't always what you're making, you know, and it's not bad. It just is different. It doesn't fit into their school of comics, and so, you know, it's not bad to try, but maybe you just don't have the right story for them.
Yeah, and the great thing about webcomics is that it encourages everyone to be themselves. So there's a lot of individuality, which helps the art form. It helps keep the art form alive and fresh by having people who can put out their work without any filter. So that's what keeps the comic strip art form alive and kicking.
Yeah, I don't see the advent of the internet and it taking on more of a prominent presence than newspapers used to. Like anything, like any type of media, eventually has to evolve and either catch up or fade away. It was like the advent of television versus radio. When television first came out, they kept saying radio's gonna die, radio's gonna be dead. Same way when radio came out against newspapers. You know,
Yeah.
oh, newspaper's going to die, it'll be all radio now. And that didn't happen. It just found a different balance. And I think with the internet,
Right.
it's still finding its balance right now. But it's just another, you know, it's just another publishing tool.
Yeah.
It's just a wider audience. And, it doesn't make as much money, but at the same time, you can make that up in other areas, in other ways. Basic webcomics model that I've seen a lot of people do, especially when they have a good story that they get a fair reader base for. It takes about a couple of years on average to get that decent reader base, and then they start making a book. They start making a little bit of merchandise, at least, you know, maybe a couple T-shirts, maybe coffee mugs or a few small things, and that starts making a living off of it. But it's a longer, slower model than getting syndicated right away. But syndication, the way I understand it, is still kind of a slow model too, because you're not always picked up right away at different cities and different papers.
Exactly. That's a very good point.
So
I think I got the critical mass first.
Yeah. You know, I think overall of comics as a very slow burn. You know, the majority of stories, you're not putting them out there in a big chunk, especially if it's not a floppy or trade on a regular, like, weekly, monthly basis, if you're doing a daily or a weekly strip. It's a slow build, and you have to advertise, you have to push it, you have to connect with your fan bases more. With the older... Go ahead,
Hen. All that is very true, but it also, that's its peculiar power, in that it's their daily. I mean, if you're doing a daily strip, it's there every day, and it gets into a habit and becomes ingrained in the audience. They get into a routine of, let's get up in the morning, go through my webcomic list, and see what so-and-so is doing. Now let's go here and see what so-and-so is doing. And that builds on a daily basis. It's not one thing that comes out every 2 or 3 years, but it's always there. It's kind of like water flowing over a rock. It's going to slowly erode that rock, but it'll happen.
Definitely. I've heard from a couple older cartoonists. Now, they've been syndicated a lot longer, and some of them are really staunchly against the internet, and I think it's just an older mode of thinking versus a newer, you know, that change of media. And, you know, it's not bad to think, again, I try not to poo-poo anybody and their mind frame on a lot of this, but, you know, things happen, time changes, new technologies come along. You got to either evolve to keep up, or go ahead and maybe retire it at some point.
Well, you can't pretend the internet isn't there. I mean, that's not an option. It's there. So your answer there is, okay, what do you do with it? How can I use this to help my work? And I can do this, I can do that. I can do this without impacting what I have with newspaper strips. I can have them, in fact, to use a buzzword, synergy between the two of them, so that you're not taking away from one, you're not hurting one, but they're working together to have the sum greater than the parts. That's the stance I've always taken.
Yeah, I'm just glad that more and more cartoonists are taking advantage of the internet, because, you know, I am living in New Mexico. It is a very, how do I put this politely, it's a very core comics-based area. It's very sparse in that terms. I haven't had a comic shop in at least 5 years. There's a new one that recently popped up that a school teacher is running in her spare time.
Oh, well, that's not good. Good.
Yeah, it's really awesome. But you know, so I've had to depend upon the internet now, like Comixology and the like, to be able to see any new comics, anyways.
Yes.
And so, you know, the internet is the biggest communication tool we now have, and you have to try to embrace some aspect of that.
Exactly. When I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, there were no comic shops in the 70s. It wasn't until I got to Atlanta in the early 80s that, oh, there are all these comic shops. I discovered so much. I discovered Will Eisner's The Spirit. All this history that I've been unaware of, and that was a revelation.
Yeah, I had to learn on my own a lot of comics history and the internet, because I came up right as the internet was actually starting to become to fruition. I was in high school. I graduated in 1997, and so that's when internet was just actually starting to get the ball rolling.
Right.
And
Yes.
And you know, a couple of the school systems had intranet where they were connected to one another, but that was about it. But it was still that was a revelation to everybody. And immediately, when people were doing that, all the kids were putting up their little doodle comics from you know, their notes in class and things like that. And I saw right away where this could eventually go. So I went ahead and got a degree in computers to try to help myself with my comics later on, because I knew the internet would be the thing, you know.
Right.
Now, to branch off into Comixology here, we discussed this briefly earlier, and I think, James, you could probably jump in on this. Now that Comixology, which was bought out a while back by Amazon, is now trying to start doing a unlimited, what they call their unlimited run. They're trying to do a monthly subscription service now for a certain fee. They just launched it a couple weeks ago. I mean, it is brand spanky new, and I don't think they quite thought out all their logistics of it. They, several of the creators that are on the app that sell their work digitally through their app have been complaining because they were not communicated with. They weren't told this was going on. They weren't given the option to give permission to put their work on it or not. You know, you should be able to have the option to opt out if you don't want to. Yeah. And so far, at least from all the articles I've read, all the feedback so far, they were probably not as forthcoming as they needed to be. The main creator runner of Comixology, David Steinberger, there's a very good interview. I'll link it down in the description, guys, if you guys want to see it. Comics Alliance did a very good interview with him, and he talks about it, and he claims that they did speak with at least a number of publishers. The problem is Comixology is also open to a lot of independent creators, and I don't think they talk to the independent creators. And that's where the confusion is coming in. They might have talked to at least most, if not all, the publishers, but they didn't talk to the individual creators, the independents that are on there as well. Now, I don't see Unlimited as being bad. I see this as a very good way to introduce people to several 100,000 comics. I mean, let's face it, it's a very good business model to introduce to both current readers and new ones. Hey, you want to know about Captain America? Here's the first couple of Captain America. Why don't you read it and check it out and see what you think? Now, they've done, right now, they haven't completely opened up their whole catalog yet, which I think is actually a good idea. It looks like they usually got at least the first couple of books, or maybe the first run of a lot of books on there. And then you have to purchase the rest, which I think is overall the best option, because it both helps introduce new readers, and then they can then decide if they want to go ahead and continue reading by then purchasing the books, which then gives support to all the creators.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, and we discussed this just a little earlier, right before we started recording, about how I don't think they communicated as well as they should have with everybody. They didn't advertise this at all. I just found out about it when we did our last podcast. And we published our last podcast on the 1st of June. That was only a couple days ago. And they had released it, I believe, on the, what was it, the 27th of May, is I do believe when they released Comixology. And, I mean, nobody had hardly heard about it. There were a couple blips on the radar, but they kind of kept it a little too hush-hush, in my opinion, especially being an Amazon affiliate. They should have really, there should have been banners everywhere and whatnot talking about it. I don't think they did very good at advertising it right offhand. I don't think they communicated very well with at least the independent creators, and probably several of the smaller publishers, because several of them have spoke up in other articles I've read, saying that they were never told anything, that they were never given an option. So I think that's one boo-boo Comixology needs to go and remedy fairly quickly, without losing creators yanking all their stuff off. You know.
I mean, the thing about webcomics is that every comic strip has a different kind of audience. They appeal to a different audience. And every webcomic, by that token, has a different business model. Someone is going to say, I'm going to sell this percentage of t-shirts, I'm going to sell this percentage of coffee mugs, this percentage of books. And it's all going to be different for each individual character, because everyone's going to have a different mix of readers. So everyone is based on their own experience. So one size isn't going to fit for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. You know, several of the creators there, they put their first couple of books for 99 cents just to get new readers to start out with. So, I mean, you need to at least be able to give those creators an option to opt in the unlimited or not. I mean, overall, me and Jamie discussed this last podcast very briefly, but he made some very good positive points about it. And in the long term, this can bring you far more readers. And I agree. But just put up the first couple of books or the first run to entice new readers in, and then they can purchase the rest. But let's say you're a brand new creator. You've only got one book, and you need to at least make a little bit off of that to be able to compensate for the time you've put into it. So I think they should just go ahead and give them a good option to at least opt out for now. Maybe they want to put up 3 or 4 books before they opt in, you know.
Yeah.
And depending upon it,
I've done.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I've always said I've tried every business model with Kevin and Kel as it exists on the internet, except one. I've never put up a paywall. That's the only thing I've never done, because I think once you put up a paywall, then you're sealing yourself off to any new readers. That's just my personal belief. But over the course of Kevin and Kel's run, and it's now the longest running daily webcomic that's still running after 1995. It started off as practically a syndicate model in which we sold it for $5 a week to other websites. And that lasted for a few years. Then we went to banner ads, and that lasted a few years. And finally, in the early 2000s, it was what we found out that really worked was the pay-per model. And a lot of people have gone to that through the Patreon program, but as far as I know, Kevin and Kel was one of the first to do that. But basically, I filched the public broadcasting model where you give to at different levels and you get different premiums at each level. Like at the original, at the lowest $20 level, you get a button, you get a year's subscription to have the strip emailed to you, and you get admission to the Kevin and Kel social, a party that we have at a dinner party that we have at AntlerCon every year. And as you go up the levels, you get different. You add something every level. At the $50 level, you get a signed print that only the patrons see. Other levels go all the way up to actually appearing in the strip as a character in the strip, interacting with the characters as the species of your choice. But like I said, every webcomic is different. That's what I found through trial and error works for me.
Oh, yeah, I mean, especially with Patreon now. I haven't gotten a Patreon yet up just because I don't think I have a large enough readership yet to, really be able to pay into it and, kind of make it worth my time to put the effort into it yet. But I've got several other friends that have a more prolific, strips and comics in general, depending upon the type you're making, of course. And I think I've got one of them, Dave Barrick. He's frequently a co-host here. He does Girl Power, girlpowercomic.com.
Yeah.
And he's got a very large fan base, but he also tapped into the superhero / feminist angle of things, and he has a very large fan base now, and so it helps him support him be able to then make comics for everybody. I mean, it's a very good model overall. It just depends upon the strip, it depends upon your comic.
Yeah. Right.
Mine was more or less ornamental is more or less an experiment. Mine is Christmas ornaments having their own personalities and navigating Christmas and then the whole year in general. Yeah, I haven't found anybody else that's done anything like it. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and it's very pun-filled. Very pun-filled. But, it's not always everybody's cup of tea. I've had a couple of people actually complain because they claim my humor is either too childish. There's a couple of slightly off-color jokes, if you want to take it that angle, that could be taken the wrong way, but not quite. And so they tell me my strip isn't very family-friendly and just things like this. And then others, for instance, I've had two church organizations contact me wanting to run my strip in their, at least one or two strips in their monthly newsletter, except they didn't want to pay me, so.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'll bet they said, oh, but you'll get exposure.
Yeah. Exactly, and I said, well, politely, I can get my own exposure. I'm getting quite a bit right now. So I'm making my own, and if you would like to pay me this much per strip, you're more than welcome to, I'll give you a selection that you can use. Since you said you wanted 2 a month, okay, that's fine. You can choose out of the archives, and then I'll send you a high-res copy, but you have to pay me.
Right, yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
So I never heard back from them again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of them tell me, but this is the good Christian thing to do. I'm not. So.
Yeah.
That's
so I
the
was
polite
curious
way to put
about.
it. I'm not. So. Have a good day.
Of course, of course, the other side is that they at least contacted you. A lot of times, people just run it without even they just do a screenshot, and you never know.
Yeah.
I found that out.
Yeah, I've caught a couple doing that, and I've sent polite cease and desist letters, and the people that have pointed it out to me have said that they stopped after that. So, yay, hopefully. But, oh man, do you get
Support
a
your
lot
local
of,
market.
yeah, basically. Support us while we're alive, guys. Don't buy our art when we're dead. We don't need the money then.
Right. Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it.
Getting multiple
But
sources
do you
of
get a
income
lot
from
of
calling people?
letters and whatnot asking basically for free work?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I politely decline, and like you said, ask for just a reasonable fee, and I usually never hear from them again. I mean, I can't. It was, it's just something for just $20. I mean, it's petty cash, guys.
Yeah,
You find it under your
basically.
sofa cushion.
Yeah, it's not that difficult to pay somebody for their work.
Yeah.
And we're not asking huge, substantial fees. No, anybody I know that's ever been asked has given a very reasonable, especially if it's a church organization or a bake sale or whatever, and they want to use your characters on their sign. And I've told them, hell, I'll make you the signs.
Yeah.
But you gotta pay me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always one of those terms of, pay me, guys, okay? I'm the one that made this. I actually own the copyright on this. I could technically sue you. We don't want to do that. That would be impolite.
Yeah, and then you get, because it's a cartoon, and it might have taken me an hour or 2 hours to draw. They could say, hey, this only took you that long. Why should I pay you for just taking an hour's work? Well, it took me 30 years to get to where it would only take an hour.
Exactly. You need to compensate me for the time and education I put into learning the skills. It's the same as paying a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician to help you. They took the time to go get the education and the experience to do the job correctly in the half hour it usually takes them to fix your AC. Yeah. Come on, guys.
We as cartoonists work very hard to make it look quick and easy. It's like a stand-up comic who puts 100 hours of practicing in front of a camera, trying to get their delivery down to make it look like they're just talking off the cuff. They put a tremendous amount of work, years of honing that, and we're the same way in that we try to make it look like it's quick and fun. A tremendous amount of work goes into creating that illusion.
Yeah, and with the internet, you can actually show kind of behind that veil, and especially with Patreon, making it part of some of your time and energy there, recording yourself as you're working, is you could show people at least part and parcel your process. And I've had I took several years of art throughout college, around taking my computer classes and the like. And so I took a lot of figure drawing, I took a lot of landscaping, and that way I could make it look easy. And
yes.
I'm I'm still getting it wrong, you know, and that's part of the process.
I've got a call here. It's
Go right
it's
ahead.
my wife.
Okay, I'll put you on mute.
Hello. Hey, I'm on a podcast right now.
Okay, guys, sorry about that. I went ahead and muted Bill for just a minute, and I'll wait till his phone is put down there. Okay, Bill, I muted you. Let me unmute you real quick, as long as the internet will let me. See if you can unmute yourself. There should be a little tag right there. There we go.
Okay, how's that?
There we go.
Okay.
I just
Fantastic.
I muted you real quick so that way we didn't hear all of your phone call. Sorry about that. Anyways, why don't we move on to the next news story we had in the lineup here, and it's talking about fandom. Again, I'll have links down in the doobly-doo for anybody that wants to read up on these news stories. Talking about fandom and how sometimes they can become extremely overwhelming to the point of almost destroying people's work. Now, I'm talking specifically about extremely rabid fans. The article I will link specifically talks about the recent change in Captain America and how they're, at least in that latest issue, they made it seem like he's been a Hydra agent all along.
Right.
And how fans are going apeshit about this. Now, at least some of them are. And I've actually... Yeah. I mean, it is. It's to stir the pot. It's to make the story more interesting. It is to rev up the fandom. But people are taking it too far. Some of them have been sending death threats, you know, claiming that this huge change kills the character, it kills their want to ever read it again. And I keep trying to, you know, be that calm in the storm, saying, guys, look, it's a story. We all love the characters, but they can take it where they want to. Just find out what happens next. Yeah. Maybe he's doing a secret double agent thing, and you know, and he's trying to root out some of the super bad Hydra agents and figure out who all they are. I mean, who knows what's going on? You know.
I don't think Marvel is going to. Marvel/Disney is going to eliminate a character that's made them billions of dollars. Just, I mean, what you just speculated is probably what's going to happen because it's what always happens. Have you read a comic book before?
Yeah, you know, it's just one of those.
I feel like
it's a cliffhanger, guys. It's a writing tool. Find out what happens next in the next issue, the next episode. You know, it's one of those mini tropes. Not a bad one, just, you know, used before. It's a cliffhanger. Find out what happens next. Is he really part of Hydra, or is he just saying it to throw everybody off? You know.
Yeah. Are we starting to see an audience from the movies bleeding over?
Maybe that secret clone that they snuck in, you know, and the real Captain America is trussed up somewhere, and who knows? Who knows? Right. But this is the fun. This is the fun part of writing and illustrating comics. Is, you know, you can throw in those little twists and turns, and taking it over top as fandom doesn't help in the long run. In fact, it turns a lot of people off, you know? So I know several creators that never want to do conventions ever, because they've gotten so much hate mail and the like that they're actually afraid to be known in public. They use a pen name and things like this, so that way...
That's silence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's shutting down.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, this type of censorship almost to it. And that diminishes the interaction with the creator and the public, you know?
Right.
So, and it's the same idea behind people throwing a fit behind, like, for instance, the reboot of Ghostbusters, which I'm looking forward to.
Oh, I am too.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And just go in and enjoy yourself. You'll have a great time.
Yeah, you know,
but
and
because the alternative is not having Ghostbusters.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, what's the point in poo-pooing on it? Honestly, think about it.
Yeah.
Break this down into pros and cons. We get some new fun movies, a new take on a older concept that we've been introduced to before. Some of us older. Some of the younger ones that are coming up now have probably hardly seen Ghostbusters. They might have seen a grainy copy of the older Ghostbusters, but this will be newer. This will have some of the newer effects that our movie studios can do nowadays, and just fun stuff like that. And with the new cast of comedians, yes, they happen to be female. Ooh, boobies! Whoa, oh my God! You know.
New spin. Yeah.
No, it's not bad.
You mentioned conventions, and I'll just this is my plugging part of the interview. I have 3 conventions coming up. I'm going to be at Anthrocon in Pittsburgh over the July 4th weekend. Over the Labor Day weekend, I'll be at DragonCon in Atlanta in the Artist Alley. And in October, I'm coming up to New York for New York Comic Con for the first time. I'll probably be hanging out at the National Cartoon Society table at different times. So that's what I have coming up this year.
Very cool. You know, especially smaller creators, I know more and more are staving off going to cons because cons can get really expensive.
Yes, they are.
And
yes.
Yeah, and see, like myself personally, I work a day job as well as make my comics.
Mm-hmm.
And my comics don't make very much for me right now, but again, I am starting out, you know, I'm still in the infancy of my comic and the like. Mm-hmm. So I think overall I'm investing time into it to maybe later on in several years then be able to go do conventions. I'm just hoping some of these conventions, I know they've got to make a certain amount of money because they are renting the space and the electricity and the like and the overhead and the security and all that, and I completely understand that. But they need to be able to balance out their ticket sales with the booth rentals, you know, the booth and table rentals. And a lot of them aren't taking into, I don't think they're taking into account that most of the people that are coming and getting a booth or getting a table are basically making minimum wage or less.
Yeah.
With this. Yeah. And I think they need to really rethink that, at least in the future. Mm-hmm. I know several people that will never do the big cons. Never.
Well, I went out to San Diego twice in 2012 and 2013. And while I was pleased with the amount of sales, the travel expenses exceeded them because, you know, plane fare because from Atlanta, shipping my books out there, and the hotels in San Diego during Comic-Con are expensive. So all those together made me say, well, I'm going to try New York this year. I will stay on the Eastern Seaboard.
Right. So you'll bite that bullet and see how it goes and see if it's worth it.
Yeah. Because there's a risk to not going to conventions, which has to be taken into account. Things just dry up, so that has its own costs, hidden costs.
It's true. I think the closest 2 conventions to me where I'm at, is Albuquerque Comic Con and Denver Comic Con. And the guys that generally run Albuquerque have a very bad reputation. So I don't think I'll ever do Albuquerque, honestly. But I want to try Denver in the future. I've heard a lot of positivity about Denver. So I think at some point I want to at least try to go do Denver. I loved at least visiting Emerald City back in 2014. I went with one of our frequent co-hosts, Carrie Potter, and that's when she met Scott Kurtz for the first time, and drooled like a fangirl for a little bit. And yeah, that was fun. that was highly amusing.
I should have taken at that very con with Shannon Garrity, we also had a panel that went very well. It was me, Shannon, Brad Geiger, and Phil Foglio, Girl Genius. So that was a really fun panel to have. I was really glad to be a part of that.
Oh man, I wish I could have hit more of the panels. I think I'm going to have to save up and do another trip to Emerald just because it was so much fun. It was.
Yeah.
It's just, I live in the country. I don't go to big cities very often, so I'm just kind of, oh my God, there's people! You know, I get a bit overwhelmed by giant buildings. Oh my God, you know. I'm like, I'll go back to my desert hole now. I'm not very good in cities. It's just me. I just don't see them very often. So I'm like, there are more people in the world. Oh my God. Yeah.
The first con
that I ever about the internet. It connects everybody.
2009.
Yes. Without physically having to connect them. Yeah. No, overall, I think I at least want to visit a couple of conventions, at least for fun. But the first, I haven't done any cons to sell books or any of my zines yet. I've done all online sales so far. And maybe a couple of local art shows, you know, arts and craft shows. Being New Mexico, we at least have a lot of art shows. So I do those frequently. So I do have some experience running a table. It's just in a different atmosphere, different aspect. And it's been kind of interesting finding my niche amongst all of that, because usually I'm the only cartoonist there, and so 9 times out of 10 I'm doing caricatures half the time, and that usually pays off my table at least right away. Hey, it's fun. Why not? You know, keeps up the art skills, right? But you know, I think I want to try Denver Comic Con probably here in about 2 years.
Yeah.
I want to try to visit it at least next year, kind of get the feel. I got lots of friends that live up around Denver, so somebody will let me at least crash on their couch. Friends in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, you gotta make friends in this world, and that nice power of the internet. You can actually make quite a few cartoonist friends and friends in different cities,
right.
And kind of do almost an Airbnb thing, and you can see if they won't even rent you a room, you know, for a couple days. But that's 10 times cheaper than getting a hotel room. Oh my God. Some of these cities are crazy about the hotel room expenses.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! You wouldn't believe how many people I know go ahead and do hostels and the like, or try to find a distant family member that lives in the area to let them crash on a couch or the floor or whatever. Right. Because cartoonists aren't making a huge living, guys. We aren't. The majority of this is out of pure love and respect for the art form, respect for our own stories, and wanting to share with everybody. I mean, that's one of the biggest things about making comics and art is you're putting part of yourself down on that page and on the screen there for everybody.
And we're relying on the kindness of others.
It's true. It's true. And there are a lot of kind people in this world. They really are. And I am grateful for all of my readers that I do have, and for all of our subscribers here on the podcast too. And the podcast, the nice thing about this podcast is it also opens up more avenues talking to more people and talking about the industry and and talking about sneezing and getting derailed. And it looks like James is having a lot of technical issues because EA Hotel Internet. So sorry guys, he hasn't jumped on. He's had a lot of problems trying to get audio and his microphone to work.
Hotel Internet connections are, you're basically online with about 500 other people in the hotel.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is generally the case. So, sorry, guys.
I'd also like to mention one thing that I have out in pertaining to Destiny, in that I've put out an app called Destiny in Virtue Noir, where she goes online and in the world of cyberspace solves a crime in which people's identities are being stolen, literally. And it's a app, and you can see it at, you can see the promo site at virtuenoir.com. That's spelled VIRTUNOIR.com. And there's a short little video that is kind of a promo and has what it's about and how to access it.
Do you have it available on like the Google Play Store or iTunes or anything yet?
It's on iTunes.
Okay, okay. So if people want to go ahead and go into iTunes,
right now it's available.
They should be able to search it out there.
There's a link on that site. Yes.
Good, good, good. Very cool, very cool. I didn't know about that one, so now I'm going to have to look that one up myself. Yay, more Destiny.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Destiny is my favorite character.
Oh, well, thank you. I kind of knew when I created her that she was something special, because I was looking all this time for a character that could be the center of the strip that everyone revolves around, but had her own uniqueness, and that had been missing with the other characters that I'd done. She, in her own unique way, provided that, and I kind of knew as soon as I created her, even before the strips that she'd been in started appearing, I knew, because the writing suddenly got so natural. Gags just suggested themselves, and as a creator, you kind of know that, I think I got something here.
Yeah, something catches you and it just starts rolling and rolling and snowballing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her personality. I love her positivity, but still being nice and gothy and being able to fit her aesthetic and her personality into the corporate box. I mean,
right. She doesn't compromise herself. She does her job well and doesn't alter who she is. And that conflict drives a lot of the humor that she's able to resolve it.
Yes, yes, it's fantastic. I love Destiny. All right, there's one more story I wanted to cover real quick here before we wrap up. For those that don't know, Mark Miller, the creator of Kick-Ass and Hit Girl, is doing a new contest. And again, links will be down in the doobly-doo for anybody that wants to go and look it up. He is looking for a new artist for a new Hit Girl comic. The problem is Mark Miller is notoriously known for being a liar and a cheat. So if
I've never met him.
Yeah. It's just this is actions from the past, mind you, but that's fairly recent past. Kick-Ass isn't that old, you know. It's been around for just a little bit, and so is Hit Girl and the like, and the movies and whatnot really hyped up the comics and vice versa. And I love the aspect of Kick-Ass. I love the aspect of Hit Girl and whatnot. But Mark Miller, the creator, is not a very reliable person. And I don't mind that he's doing the contest, although I kind of have a thing against doing comics-based contests because a lot of times they just straight up steal from the artist and the creators without compensating them. And he's claiming in his contest, this is the reason why I wanted to bring it up, he wants to pay the new artist that he chooses $10,000 an issue to create the new Hit Girl comics. Now, that's actually a reasonable payment for an artist's time to help create the new Hit Girl comics. Honestly, the page rate actually balances out pretty well when you do the math. The problem is he's not been reliably known to pay out at all. So, on one hand, you could get chosen and it would be awesome and you get your work out there. On the other hand, you might not get paid at all. You know,
well, I can't speak to the particulars of something that I'm not familiar with, but I can tell you that I've said several years ago in my comic strip Safe Havens, the main character Samantha got married. So I told my readers, you can design Samantha's wedding dress. Samantha's a scientist, so the wedding dress came off as a half wedding dress, half lab coat. And
right.
I said, design the wedding dress, I will use it in the strip, and you will get the original artwork of the strip that the dress appears in. And I had about 6 or 7 excellent submissions, and I put them up on Facebook. And again, according to the ground rules that I set up, was that the winner will be the one that gets the most likes. And over a certain amount of time frame, the voting took place, and one of the submissions won, and I used that in the strip and sent the artist, as promised, the original art, and everyone was happy. All 7 people got their work put up online. People looked at them, and that all worked out because I set the ground rules and I followed them, and that was a totally positive experience.
I mean, overall, contests can be a very positive experience. I mean, they're a good interaction with your public. You know, it gives them a chance to show their love and their respect for you and your work. But the problem is the carrying through. You know, you are an honorable person, and you've proven that over the years of, you know, staying true to your word and fulfilling. And the part of the problem with Mark Miller is he hasn't. And so this is why I tell people, if you want to do this contest, for instance, I say go for it. You know, you want to put yourself out there, just understand that you need to take that with a grain of salt, and you need to maybe have a contract even set up. You know, if you win.
Contracts are always good. Get it in writing.
Yeah, get it in writing. Go ahead and get just a minor contract set up. Say, hey, okay, I won the contest. Cool. Let's set up just a minor contract so that way everything's laid out in ground rules. And if you change your mind at some point, I'm still getting compensated. I still won the contest. I should at least get compensated for whatever I've created. And this is why I am so iffy, at least with Mark Miller. Now, there have been a couple other comics contests that have done fantastic, go for it, and others have been terrible. Tokyo Pop is an example of a terrible, terrible contest. They had, or at least they used to, and they're trying to come back, and we'll leave that for another time. But when they were first initially running, they had gotten a lot of people reading manga when it was really becoming hot and a hard thing through the early part of 2000s. And they allowed new creators to submit their own short story roughly within like 6 or 8 pages, certain format, in that more Japanese style of art and story. And they claimed they would give a certain percentage of funds to the creator, whoever they chose, things like that. And the problem was the contracts that they set up with these people basically made the people literally sign over their work to them.
Okay.
And almost all of them never got compensated. Ever.
Yeah. Always get an intellectual property lawyer. That's always a good thing.
Yes. It was one of those many things that it taught a lot of people. Contracts are a good thing, but read them and even contact a lawyer about them. Go ahead and spend that little extra money for an hour of somebody's time to look over the contract with you, and it's worth it in the long run. It really is. And a lot of these people, Tokyo Pop went bankrupt. They went out of business there for a little while. But what happened was, and this is a sneaky business practice, they technically sold all the copyrights they owned to a subsidiary company they still owned, but it was under a different name. And so they still own the copyright on a number of these books that the creators are still fighting to get back to this day. And it's been over 10 years with some of them.
Well, I wasn't aware of it. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you guys got to be careful with these contests. It's not that they're bad. It's that you really have to read the fine print, and you really have to read those contracts. Set up a contract and get a lawyer involved if you have to. If it seems bad, don't sign.
Right.
It's worth your time in the long run.
Yes.
To do it yourself, if anything. Keep your stories. If you're willing to sell it, which is fine, if you have created a story, but you're willing to sell it and sign it over, make certain they compensate you. Big check. Because think about this. This is something that could pay you a long time over a long period. For instance, Charles Schultz, creator of Peanuts. He could have sold that a long time ago and still made money off of that for a long time. But he didn't. He decided to keep it. But he also had a different business model to go off of at the time. But nonetheless, he kept it. He did not sell it off. Now, he sold particular parts of the rights of it, for instance, the merchandising rights and the like. He doesn't own all of those to this day. He actually sold some of those. And the way I understand it, they weren't exactly upfront about which ones he sold. So that's why you can still find a lot of odd and interesting Snoopy products out there that the Schultz family is not getting paid for.
Well, one thing that the Schultz family did do before Schultz passed away was negotiate with the syndicate so that the syndicate could not get someone else to draw Peanuts. It's the reason you see reruns of Peanuts in the newspaper, but not new Peanuts strips. That they couldn't give it to a artist who would put their own stamp on Schultz's work. Only Schultz would do Peanuts, and that's something the family negotiated with the syndicate.
And I think that was fantastic on their part. That was actually pretty groundbreaking, the way I understood it from that time period, as nobody else had done that before. There are several creators to this day in the comics industry overall that the families are still fighting for the rights of the work to this day.
A classic example was the Siegel and Schuster. The creators of Superman.
Yeah, to this day they're still fighting over the basic intellectual properties of Superman, and I know they settled for a little while, but then some other aspect is brought up again, and it kind of goes back and forth a lot of times. But this is why I try to emphasize to so many people, especially nowadays, education, guys. Education is power. Read up on copyright law. Learn how to copyright things yourself. It doesn't cost that much. It really doesn't, and it's worth it in the long run.
Right.
You know, well, we talked about briefly before the podcast started death and death benefits and the like. And do you have a living will by chance?
Just the standard will. We've talked about the issues of a living will, but haven't put it in writing. That's something that Bethany would be much interested in.
Yeah, you know, that would be very interesting to find out exactly what you would do, just in the, you know, if you don't mind being open to the public about something like that. Your copyrights and the like on all of your different comics you've got. Do you specifically own all your copyrights?
King Features owns Fast Track and Safe Havens. I own Kevin and Kel. Kevin and Kel does appear on the Fast Track. I mean, on the King Features website, where strips that are 5 years old are currently running. But I signed a contract giving them the rights to do that, while I still retain ownership of Kevin and Kel. King Features does own the copyright of Fast Track and Safe Havens, and my relationship with King is excellent. They are wonderful. They have always. Let me put it this way. We've always been on the same page, and that's very gratifying. I've been very pleased with my relationship with them for 30 years.
Awesome, awesome. So let's say you did a living will. Would you make certain that all your copyrights that you do own are included into the will, just in case, you know, heaven forbid, as they say, something happens to you? You can make certain that your family at least retains ownership of whatever you've got and you've created.
Well, like I said, right now that just pertains to Kevin and Cal.
I just figured I'd ask. You never know until you ask. But, you know, I've thought about, because I have older family members and friends that have had to set up living wills, and they actually own copyright in other areas of media, not specifically comics and books. A number of them are musicians. But they've had to set up living wills because, you know, they've got poor health and the like. And they had to make certain that they had some living family members to basically leave the copyright to. Because basic copyright with most media is the life of the creator plus 70 years. At least that's the average.
Right.
And, some media varies a bit in length of time there past the creator's death. But overall, several of them have set up these living wills. And I thought it was very interesting that they had to go ahead and sit down and put all their copyrights down. And man, some of them had a really long list of copyrights. It was a long list. And I was like, wow, you made stuff. I know, okay, one friend of my father's, his name is Cotton Reed. He was one of the original fiddlers for Hank Williams I.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he worked in Nashville and around the honky-tonk country scene for many years. He is a well-known musical writer. He had a bad car accident with Hank Williams I, and it busted his wrist, so he can no longer fiddle, but he can still write music, He plays the piano and whatnot still. It's just he doesn't have that flexibility of arm. They had to fuse his arm.
Yeah.
And so he has a lot of copyrights, and so he's one of the people I actually talk to about copyright, even though his is from the musical aspect.
Right.
Oh man, he helped a bunch of people with a bunch of music, both behind the scenes and on the road. And so he knows a lot of the greats, the old greats and the like. And copyright, I was raised around learning copyright very quickly. My mother is a published poet. My grandmother did a number of paintings and a bit of poetry herself. And they learned about copyright too late.
Oh.
Yeah. And several things have been stolen. And so I learned from a very young age about copyright. Yes. And how this is a very important aspect of being a creator. But I was also told, at least back then, to be silent about your work until you could get it copyrighted. Okay. It's only more newer that you could actually be out there. It's newer in the copyright laws that it was from the time of creation. You still own your technical copyright, but you have to, if somebody steals it from you and you haven't registered it yet, then you have to prove in court when you actually created yours.
Yeah.
So it's one of those legal aspects that I try to emphasize to people. We have a regular co-host. He's actually a copyright lawyer.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a very nice guy. His name's Matthew Parker. He's actually just a writer. He does an online novel, Border, Kansas, for anybody who wants to go and check it out. And he's a very fun guy to have on. But we're always talking about copyright law with him, of course. Like, yes, we're gonna have somebody who actually knows the insides of this. Let's pick your brain.
Excellent.
yes, excellent, Smithers. But he's a fun guy to really poke fun at too. I'm not. But you guys, you gotta really be careful. Read your contracts. If something seems fishy or you just don't understand it, ask. Open your mouth. Right. And if they give you clarification and it still doesn't make sense, ask them if you can have a day to consult your lawyer.
Yeah. And if they say no to that, that's a red flag.
Big O red flag the size of fucking Texas. That's when you say no thank you, I'm backing out of this deal, because it is not worth your time to get stuck in a crappy deal.
Right.
And it's also good to set up a basic boilerplate in there if something happens. So let's say you start working on a project for somebody, let's say just a book, just, for the example. Let's say halfway through you get very sick and you get hospitalized. They're still expecting you to create that book within the time frame, the deadline.
Yeah.
You need to put in the basic boilerplate, a way to back out if something happens. You know, fire, flood, death. Yeah, it's one of those basic clauses you should always have in there in case of illness, in case of, you know, natural disaster. Because I know another creator, they were in the middle of creating for a contract, and Hurricane Katrina hit.
Yeah.
Lost all their work in the floods, all of it. And I want to say who, that's theirs, but because they had that basic boilerplate in there of, shit happens. They were able to politely back out of the contract, even though that put more of a time crunch on the creator, the publisher. Shit happens. That's the basic aspect. Yeah, protect yourself. Put something in there. Maybe this is one of the reasons why I only take a couple contracts here and there. I do some freelance work, but the few I've done, I am very strict with them about time frame. If they want it too soon, like with my skill level, I know how long it takes me to make an average comic page, for instance, or illustration. And if they want it in too hard of a time frame, I go ahead and I back out. Because I do work a day job plus do my comics and my art. That leaves me a small window per day of doing any extra work, unless they're going to compensate me more than enough where I can quit my day job.
Right.
If they're going to compensate me more than enough to do that, I'll gladly drop the day job and go ahead and take the work, and then maybe go find some more work elsewhere. But if I don't, if I'm trying to do it within their time frame, and you just know you can't, you have to give yourself that window to go ahead and back out politely. This is why I emphasize contracts so much and copyright so much. Read, people, read. Oh my God. Oh man. Well, I think I have kept you for more than long enough, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yes, you are always welcome to come back on, especially if you've got anything new you want to pimp or tell us about, whatever. More than welcome, man. And thank you.
A book coming out. I have a book coming out in about 2 weeks. It's a collection of Kevin and Kel strips called Hoofbeats. It features the strips from 2014, which the main storyline for that year was the marriage of Rachel and Joan. Rachel is a rhino and Joan is a horse. And Lindisfarne, the character from Kevin and Kel, is asked by them to officiate their wedding, so she becomes ordained and officiates her friend's wedding. So that's coming out in about 2 weeks.
Awesome! That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Well, all right. Again, thank you so much for coming. This is thank you. We just interviewed Bill from On the Fast Track at onthefasttrack.com, and you have Kevin and Kel at
KevinandKel.com.
KevinandKel.com. Okay, cool. And thank you to Uncle James for trying to make it and having, well, not great internet, but that's okay. Thank you for coming, James, anyways. It happens. Alright, guys. Well, my name's Melanie. I do ornamental at ornamentalcomics.com, and this was episode 42 of The Trade. Bye!